with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Tonight's guest is Jared. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vic.
Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, it's great having you. Please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, as you heard, my name is Jared. I'm from New York. I was born in Saratoga, born and raised New Yorker. I'm an avid fisherman, or was an avid fisherman, I should say. And I love the outdoors as much as anybody out there. I used to hike every day, spend my days in the Adirondacks in New York. And always considered myself to be a fairly decent woodsman. And that's about it.
Well, that sounds like a good way to live your life to me. When you were a kid, did your mom used to tell you that monsters didn't exist?
She didn't tell me monsters did not exist. She actually believed in some things like Bigfoot and others, ghosts and whatnot, but she would not believe in werewolves, dogmen-like creatures at all, as I told her when I was a child.
Well, that would make her any different than most people, so we can't hold that against her.
Well, certainly not. I don't blame her whatsoever, trust me.
Oh, no, that's totally understandable. From what I understand, though, for the last 30 years or so, your mom's had to eat crow because she had her own dogman encounter. Did she apologize for being wrong to you?
Yes, she did, actually. She came home one night, trembly, told me she seen exactly what I told her existed this whole time. And it was pretty remarkable, actually, to see her actually admit that, and I appreciated it, trust me. And I finally had somebody to talk to about it.
Oh, I'm sure you did appreciate that.
Well, I didn't want my mother to have to go through that.
Well, it is a shame she had to go through that, but at least she does understand and can help support you now.
For sure. We're definitely together on it.
You say you've had problems with dogmen all of your life, Jared. How old were you when you started having experiences with them?
I was 5 years old, and the year would be 1985.
Wow, you started early. When you had those experiences as a kid, where did you live?
Hadley, New York. Upstate New York.
Is Hadley pretty overgrown with timber, or what does it look like?
It's a mountainous region of New York. It's definitely all full of timber, all sorts of undergrowth. You got your normal hardwood and softwood layers of the woods. There's a bunch of undergrowth that looks like any part of the Appalachian Mountain Range you can imagine.
All right, Jared, what kind of experiences did you have back then?
Well, when I was 5 years old, I was an extremely curious, adventurous little guy, and I would love nothing more than to go out in the woods and look for snakes or salamanders or whatever might be out there underneath the leaves and the rocks and, the logs of the forest. And I'm sure I gave my mother a heart attack more than once trying to find me deep in the woods, and she couldn't, and I'd come running out the woods, and she'd be more than happy to see me. That being said, I think one day I may have stirred up a dog man because one night after I got home from my adventures, I was going to sleep on my couch, and every night I would watch the little TV we had in the living room and our little silver trailer we had that was like a little streamline, I don't know what you call it, Airstream trailer type thing. And it wasn't a very big trailer. It was about 30 feet long, 40 at the most. It's a little trailer, and I heard something trying to get into the door. And when I looked up, I noticed a white dog-like or wolf-like creature trying to get into my house or the trailer. And it had its head in with its right foot already in, with its muzzle covered in blood, and the right foot and hawk, I guess you would call it, would be half covered and looked like blood or something was on it. That was red anyways. And it was really trying to work its way in really good, not being overly loud, but trying to be quiet and sneak in. It really wasn't paying too much attention to me. It didn't seem. It looked like it was moving its head back at one side and back to the other, like it couldn't fit its chest or its rest of its shoulders through. And I believe if it would have put its other foot in and just laid on its back and came in that way, it might have succeeded. And I'm very grateful it didn't. It scared me so bad that I blacked out for, I have to say, a few seconds, because the next thing I know, I'm in my mother and father's arms, just screaming in the bed. And they're asking me what's the matter, and I don't even know if I could tell them at the time. And my father went running out there, and I thought I heard something. My father maybe roughing around with something or something like that, but that could have just been a little boy's hopes, chasing a monster out the door. But I don't think that was the case. I don't think he's seen anything. I just believe it just quietly left.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like. If you're an adult and have an experience like that, that's bad enough. But when you're 5, laying on your own couch, watching this huge white dog man with blood on its face and leg trying to get into your living room with you, that's horrible. That's just awful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, it's not really something you can explain. You'd have to really go through something like that at that age. How are you supposed to tell a 5-year-old anything? I mean, I didn't even know what I was looking at. And I say dog-leg thing now. I didn't know what it was then. I had no idea. All I know is it was big or white and it was trying to get in my house and it had blood on it and I was scared.
Since you're only 5, I have to ask this question. I'm not asking this to be mean or anything. I just want to be clear on this. Is there any way that this could have been a dream that you mistook for reality?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. There's absolutely no way. No, I've had this memory my entire life. I know what dreams, nightmares are, etc. That was not a dream. I remember laying on the couch. I remember everything just like it was any regular memory. It wasn't a dream, though.
From the way you describe it, it wasn't trying to aggressively fight its way into the living room there. It sounds like it was just kind of casually trying to get in. Is that true?
Yeah, it was just trying to sneak its way in. It wasn't trying to bend any metal or anything like that. That's what you mean. It seemed to be trying to get him while we were all sleeping and do what it had to do with us, even though I already had blood on his face. And although who knows what it was doing out there? It could have been fighting with something, or didn't have to be eating,
The fact that it had blood on its face and on its leg, that makes it even creepier yet. Did you ever find out what animal the blood came from?
Nope, we never found any mutilated animals or anything of that nature. I don't remember anybody finding anything. No.
That blood could have come from anywhere then. Before you blacked out, do you remember how long you laid there and watched it try to get in?
Good question. I want to say maybe 15 seconds before I totally lost it. And it's not like I just looked up and took off. I was still trying to see if it was grandma or something coming through the door. I didn't really understand it. So it did take me a few seconds to grasp the gravity situation.
Oh, that's all right. You did the best you could in a very difficult situation. Do you know if your parents ever heard it trying to get in?
I don't. I never asked them that, actually. I think I may have ran it by my mother, but I don't even think she heard me. And I never got an answer on it, so I don't think they did.
Well, considering I'm going to have your mom on the show next week to tell us about her encounters, I'm going to have to ask her. I'll make a note on that.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. I'd like to know, too.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that I ask her about that. Do you remember if the door was closed when you fell asleep?
No, I really don't. But my mother was pretty good about that. The door would have been closed that night.
Do you think it would have been locked?
No.
You did tell me in the pre-interview that this happened in 85, didn't you?
Yes, I was 5 years old. I was born in 80.
Yeah, well, back then in 85, a lot of people out in the country didn't lock their doors, so there's nothing strange about that.
Yeah, we always had our doors unlocked. I don't know why.
No, a lot of people did that. That's no big deal. Your parents were definitely home at the time when this happened. I wonder why they didn't hear it.
It wasn't all that loud. It was, like I said, they were in the back room and I'd be in the living room. I'd be out front. There was only one bedroom in that little trailer in the back. So they definitely would have been back there snoring away because it was probably 2 a.m.
Yeah, that does make sense. I sure hate to play the what-if game, but it sure makes you wonder what it would have done if it would have been able to get into the house.
If it got in the house, it either would have hid from it, whatever it was hiding from, which I doubt something like that would hide from anything, or it would have, annihilated the whole family inside, including my baby sister at the time.
Yeah, that's a pretty scary thought right there. When this was all going on and you were laying there on the couch watching this dog man trying to get in, do you remember if you were quiet or if you were screaming or making noise?
I was pretty much quiet because, like I said, I was sort of in shock for at least 15 seconds. Then I blacked out from for whatever reason, and ever since then it's been an ongoing issue with them.
Yeah, sure sounds like it. Before that incident, had anything happened on or around your property that gave you or your parents the idea that some strange creature might have been hanging around?
Not that I can remember, Vic. I can remember some stories and tales being told, but nothing to that magnitude.
Oh, that's okay. When these things hang around, in a lot of cases, they don't leave much in the way of proof that they are there, so I'm not surprised you didn't notice anything. Did you have serious problems with nightmares because of that incident?
Oh, yeah. Really bad nightmares my whole life. Like I told you, I always will have. I just happen to be lucky enough now to where I can wake myself up a little quicker when I feel myself falling into one. Every now and then they get me, though, and I do wind up getting a pretty bad one.
After an experience like that was so intense, you're doing good not being in therapy, because that is just so hard to deal with.
Being a kid, too, I don't know if that helps or if that worsens the situation.
Well, the fact that you're a kid, I guess in some ways that might help if you forgot the incident, which you didn't. But in other ways, it could definitely hurt. After all, you're only a kid. You're not going to be able to deal with stressful situations like that as effectively as an adult. So, wow, I really feel for you.
Yeah, you can't. When you're a kid, I couldn't deal with it. It was above me and beyond.
Oh, I'd say it'd be above and beyond any kid, especially a 5-year-old. When you're asleep on the couch when you're 5, that's the last thing in the world you'd ever expect to wake up and see.
No, yeah, I couldn't even really process it, Vic. It was, I don't, like I said, it wasn't something easy to handle, that's for sure.
All right, Jared, please tell us about the next experience you had after that.
After that, I started to get harassed. Maybe on a nightly to every other night basis. They would tap on the windows, make scratching sounds, any kind of like thuds or just to get your attention to make sure that you knew that you were not alone and that it was there. And I used to go outside and look physically the next day to make sure there was nothing scraping the trailer, no twigs, no anything in the trailer, and never was. So obviously it was something there, and what I've seen so far in my life was that white dog man thing, and that's what I assumed was harassing me.
That's horrible. When most kids are worried about going out and playing pickup games of football or basketball or baseball, you had to deal with things like that. That's just too much.
When you're a kid, it's a little different because you're experiencing life and you're learning as you go. I wasn't understanding fully what was going on.
Yeah, that's an early education right there. Not easy to deal with. From what I understand, there was a time when you were in your grandmother's yard when you had another experience. What happened that time?
Well, I was leaving my grandmother's house, and as I walked off her porch, she had an old-fashioned screen door that would make a real just creaky noise, and it would shut hard. And I was walking around the corner, and there's a spot where the light would shine through the trees, and you can kind of see. And a big old black leg came and stepped right in the light, and then removed itself, and it was a canid leg, and it was probably, it was up to my waist, probably, the hulk of it. And I seen it, and it just took off, and I ran home. It was real strange, and even I didn't understand what that was at the time either. I told my grandmother about it, and she just said she had no idea it was a werewolf or something like that, and she didn't know either. It was pretty weird.
If its hawk was that high off the ground, it must have been a specimen.
Yeah, but I was only 7 or so.
That's still pretty big. If you said you're only able to see its leg, you weren't able to see the rest of its body. Was the rest of its body in such a dark place that you couldn't make out any details, or was the body around a corner?
Yeah, the body was just in such a dark place where I couldn't make out no detail. It was a real direct beam of light.
I see. There was another time when you heard a growl. Please tell us about that.
I was about 17, 19 years old, someplace in there, so 1997 to 1999. We were fishing, like we always do, at Satindogga River, which is right down over the bank from my house. And it started getting late, so we had decided to pack up and go in for the night. And as we were walking up the trail, I had forgotten my fishing pole. And I noticed, or we did, notice crunching in the leaves or heard it. Very subtle, like you couldn't really hear much, but it was enough to scare us. So we ran up to the bank and got my mother. and she got the car so she could shine the car lights down the bank so we could see a little bit, which didn't really do a whole lot, kind of shined off straight, not down. But we get halfway, about halfway down the bank, and I also had my dog with me named Jessie, and she stopped right in front of me and growled at something. And as she did that, something else growled back that sounded just like a jake brake on a rig coming to a stop. They were going down a hill. It was like that kind of sound. It was a brrrr, if you can imagine. Sure, everybody's heard that. And it was so loud that it reverberated my chest. And I actually pushed my mother up the hill, and she's a big woman. And I basically carried her and passed all my friends up to the top.
You passed all your friends. Sounds like that got your attention, and I don't blame you.
No, I got out of there, buddy. Another time when I had an encounter in the woods, I was in Warrensburg, New York. This is north of Hadley. I was going to my friend's house because I was, fairly depressed over the breakup. He went to work, and he left his binoculars and things behind so I could go out and do what I wanted to. He knew I liked hiking, so I took the gear and started hiking up the mountain. And it was, a normal time until I got about halfway up the mountain. There's a field, and in that field there was about, I'd say, 100 feet across or so. And something started trying to come at me, but it wasn't coming through the field. It was crashing through the trees around the field at me. At which time I noticed the thing or whatever trying to come at me. I panicked, literally, and jumped down a 15-foot embankment and ran as fast as I could as it's chasing me home. And I did hear it, and I could not look behind me. I was so terrified. That's the fastest I've ever ran in my life.
After having all these experiences like you did, how were you able to go back into the woods? With most people, they would have sworn it off.
Well, that's a passion of mine. It's hard not to. So it leaves me with nothing to do, and now I don't do that. And over time, I've slowly decreased my time in the woods, let's say.
Well, I can understand that. Yeah, when you're a kid, you do some dumb things that when you look back on as an adult, you just shake your head. But considering the fact that back then when you were growing up, you just were surrounded by woods, I guess you didn't really have all that much choice.
Yeah, like I said, it's really all I had to do, and I loved animals, especially birds of prey and things like that. I would always try to look for. Another experience I had when I was a child was I was home alone at my grandmother's house, and everybody was off working. I was just trying to watch TV a normal night, and something howled that sounded like American Werewolf in London. If you ever heard that howl? But it had a reverberation to it, like it was howling into a 55-gallon drum barrel or some sort of barrel. And it scared me so bad that I turned up every single light in the house and ran in the bathroom and jumped in the tub until everybody got home. That was really unnerving. That was quite a while till I got home too. I think it was 2 hours.
Because of the encounters you've had, what kinds of changes have you made in your life?
Well, like I said, I do not go in the woods as much as I used to. I love fishing. Okay, I really love fishing, and I will not even go by myself. But even if I have somebody else, I really second guess it before I'll go. And it takes me quite a while to work up the gumption to go.
After having all those experiences you talked about when you were a kid, and then the experiences that we have yet to talk about on tonight's show that you had when you got older, are you able to take the trash out after dark? Are you able to go out to the car or out to the truck after dark now without any problems? Or is it a real big hang-up that you still have a lot of trouble dealing with?
Well, of course, it's always in the back of your mind, but I don't really have any trouble taking out the garbage, per se, or starting up a car, no. I will do that just consciously. I try not to think about it. These things are overwhelming, as you can probably tell by the way I'm talking.
Yeah, they're more than overwhelming. I'm glad to hear that you're able to deal with those experiences in such a healthy way. That's more than a lot of eyewitnesses can say.
Yeah, well, like I said, when I was a child, it started early, so I'm fairly used to it, if you ever do get used to it.
That's more than a lot of eyewitnesses can say. Now that we've covered your earlier experiences, please tell us about the other experiences you've had with them more recently.
All right. Well, you all know I like camping. Say, 2010, I was camping with my girlfriend, and we were woke from a dead sleep by another terrifying howl that was probably, I'd say, maybe a football field away. And I woke her up, and it howled like multiple times. Right, and it sounded the same as it did when I was a child at my grandmother's house. So I knew what it was, and I was terrified. I had my dog there that was cowering in the tent with me after she heard it.
What kind of a dog was it?
She was an American Bulldog. So she was a tough dog. She didn't cower for much, and she loved the woods just as much as I did. She would go with me camping, swimming, and she went everywhere I did.
Yeah, American Bulldogs, yeah, they don't shy away from much, so if she was cowering like that, it must have been pretty bad.
Yeah, she came right up to me, and she squished, you know what I mean? And she was whining. It was loud, man. I'm trying to think how to explain it. It was so loud, it'll wake you from dead sleep. If it's close, yeah, you're going to wake up. The other time we were camping at a Girl Scout camp, and one had howled across the road. The Girl Scout camp was in Chatham, New York, and it was laid back in the woods, and there was a little pond on the south end, and the road that led to the camp would be about not even a half mile. And this thing howled, and I heard it, and this time everything, the coy dogs and coyotes and everything just started going off. The owls even started hooting more and stuff like that. It was real strange. That one was kind of eerie. The most recent experience in 2013, 3 years ago, my girlfriend and I went to the movies. I can't remember what movie we watched that night, which really bothers me. It was a pretty normal night, you know. Essentially, there was nothing going on out of the ordinary. The night was clear. It wasn't raining or anything like that. It was a nice night, really. Night a lot like this. We were going out to see a movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie. And we had, if I did, I could really narrow down the time frame for you. And anyway, we got done watching the movie, and on the way home, on a road called 9H in Westcott, New York, right after the firehouse, going north, I seen something just out of the headlights range that jumped. It looked like it jumped, and there's like a streak across the road that looked like about the size of a small bull that was trying to jump across the road. But, you know, obviously the bull would have made it. This thing just jumped right across, and as I was noticing this, I was telling myself I really wanted to slow down as much as I could. I was doing about 55 at the time. And I started to apply the brake, and as I did, I started noticing little eyes out in the distance, and I started slowing down more, and as this creature started coming into view, or Dogman, I noticed amber eyes looking down at me, sort of as a yellow Camaro SS that I was driving, so it's a kind of low car, so it was looking down at me with this grimace, growl slash smirk on his face, and like scowling at me, and just looked real angry and evil. And then, I think I already said it had amber eyes, and as I was approaching, it looked like it had an underbite. The teeth were looking like they were sticking out from the bottom jaw, but they really weren't. And as I got closer to it, I could tell that because the way the teeth were in his mouth, the canines were actually was giving me that profile. It was at his bottom, canine sticking up. Well, actually two canines sticking up through three other canines on the top. The front canine would have been the shortest of the three, followed by the longest canine in the middle on the top, and a slightly shorter canine in the back. And the bottom two were basically equal in length, the bottom two canines. And the back teeth, the incisors, were like a bear trap, almost perfectly interlocking together, but slightly sticking out through the side of his cheek. And mind you, these teeth are just pearly white as could be. They were glistening in the headlights of the car as I came up on the animal. And the Dogman was jet black in color. It was growling at me, like I said, and his ears were laid flat back on his head, as if like it was going to get ready to pounce. It didn't. It kept its head perfectly straight as I drove by it. It didn't even look down at the car or nothing, which was weird, I thought. And I got a good side view of it, and that's how I know those canines look the way they do. And also the rear incisors, or not incisor, but carnassial teeth. And the incisor teeth in the front of it, the incisors were, they were pointed. They were not flat like our teeth or other dog teeth. And I would say if I had to give that creature an estimate in size, it would have to be, that was another big one. Yeah, I'd say that's another 500 pounder, at least. standing about 7, 8 feet tall. Could have been taller than that. 9 maybe. They're hawks, I guess if they stand up on them, they could stretch out and get right up there pretty good,
Oh, they can definitely be awfully big, no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's the most surprising thing with them. Their actual size. And at that time, Vic, I thought they were werewolves. I had no idea about dogmen. I just told my girlfriend we just drove right by a werewolf and you didn't see a thing. That's exactly what I told her. And she didn't believe me. And I told her I wasn't going back to check it out.
I don't blame you. And lucky her for not seeing it.
Yeah, she didn't see it. I wasn't bringing it up either. I was keeping quiet.
Wow, what a night.
That pretty much set the stone for me, Vic. I'd not go in the woods by myself, and I won't do anything as far as camping or going out by myself. I just won't do it. I have to have people with me.
Well, it's awfully hard to look at the woods the same way when you know something like that's out there, so that's understandable. When you first saw that dog, man, you thought it was a timber wolf. Was it on all fours when you first saw it?
Well, I couldn't really tell. When I first saw it, it was like hunched down, so it was, it was down in a culvert, and it was staring straight at me. I wouldn't think it was, no, it wasn't standing up. It was on all fours, or it was hunched down a bit. And all I could see was the front profile, the head, the front, the nose, and all the teeth. And the ears were laid back, and it was literally mad at me. Their facial expression, it's just really strange. I can't even explain it. They are not dumb in any way. They're definitely intelligent. They know what they're doing, and they do it purposely. Yeah, it definitely wasn't standing up.
Thinking back on what that dog man looked like, what physical feature that it had do you consider to be the most unnerving?
Oh, by far the teeth. When I seen its equipment, I can't picture what it needs that for, so I'd imagine that they are hunting Sasquatches, and that I can't, it's just too much. It's overkill for humans or deer. They're designed to kill larger creatures for sure, or larger animals, or however you want to put that.
With weapons like that, I'd say that you're right. If that dog man would have stood up on its back legs, how tall do you think it would have been?
It was big. When it ran across the road, I mean, you could have mistaken it for a cow or something, so I'd say 8 feet, 9 feet, something like that in that area. Because they had like I said, a 3-foot head at least, and I'm being generous with that. It might have been bigger. But yeah, I mean, it would have been huge. It was a big animal.
It sure sounds like it would have been.
And they're a majestic creature as well. I mean, they're not ugly as far as their coat or nothing. Their hair gleams in the light and everything, and it almost looks like absorbing light. It's like looking at a lion or tiger, but more terrifying. Sure.
Times 10. It does make you wonder, since they are creatures of the wild, how they'd be able to keep their coats looking so good.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's a good question. Like I said, I know they're not stupid. They mean and they have intent, so when they do something, they know what they're doing. They're so smart. You think they would be seen or, assist trained. I don't understand. It's something that's beyond us.
Yeah, just about everything about them's pretty strange. Do you see the fact that you've had these experiences with dogmen as being a curse or maybe in a strange way a godsend, because at least now you know what's out there in the woods and you can take the appropriate action to protect yourself?
I look at it as a bit of both. I mean, I wish I hadn't seen them, but at the same time, I know that they're there. Ignorance is bliss. However, knowing comes with consequences. When you know something like that exists, personally, it changes your life completely, and it's something that I have a real hard time talking about, as you can tell. It really is something that goes to your core, and then it stays there, and it's not something that you can freely just talk about. It's real difficult. I know that they're real common in Columbia County, and I wish people would make more reports, because I know people have seen them that I've talked to, and they're not reporting, and it's just upsetting that we don't have, let's say, the attention or whatever that this area should have, or Columbia County, in the Adirondacks.
You say Columbia County has a lot of dogmen. Besides your mom, do you know of anyone else who's had an encounter with one?
Yeah, my sister, my friends, I don't want to say their names, but 2 other friends, my stepsister. They seem to, I think it may have been the same one that I seen, a jet black one, going across the road. Well, she said another time, Vic, my stepsister, actually, this is recent, that a black and brown wolf came out of the woods with a deer in its mouth, and she slammed on the brakes to stop for them, and the black one had set the deer down, I guess, and looked at the car and her, picked the deer back up and bounded into the woods. And she just described it as wolf. I'm like, wolves don't do that, man. And then it was a deer, dude.
Yeah, that was no wolf. We know that.
I don't even know if people are understanding what they're seeing, or I just wish they would come forward so I don't have to live with it.
Well, if they feel they're ready to come forward and talk about that, that's fine. But if they want to keep it to themselves, that's fine too. Whatever they think's in their best interest is what I'd want them to do.
That's for sure. I mean, if you're uncomfortable, I mean, don't do it. I've been uncomfortable. It took me until now to even file one report on the internet. Not something that I necessarily want people to know I know. I just want people to know that they're out there. That's my main objective.
Well, like I told you in the pre-interview, I'm glad you decided to come forward and share that.
Thanks. And I really appreciate it, Vic. I mean, it helps. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Oh, I just wish I could do more, so. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Jared. Before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yes. I want to make sure that people know that these things are out there. Do not go in the woods at night by yourself. Be vigilant around you. Take my word for it. They exist. I'm just a normal guy. As you can tell, I don't do this ever. Please, take my heed. Do not go into the woods alone. At any time, even day, night. Try to go in with somebody. People come up missing and lost all the time. And just think of what's doing it. I mean, something is.
Well, that's well said. Well, thanks so much for your time, Jared. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Vic. You too, buddy.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. If you've had a dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had a dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Tonight's guest is Clara Dutcher. Clara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vic. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's great having you. Clara, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I was born in 1964, and I lived in Hadley, New York for 35 years. Was involved in the local fire company for 7 or 8 years here in Hadley, Luzerne, and I'm a nurse. I moved to Ghent in 2000. We moved back last year, 2016. So just too much stuff down there. And I have seen numerous things and have many experiences with being in the fire company and along with Jared and Laura.
I'd say you have had your fair share of strange experiences, as the people listening are going to find out tonight on the show. As you know, Clara, your son Jared was on the show last week and told us about the huge white dog man that tried to get into your trailer with you. Please tell us about that night from your point of view.
Well, I remember he just came running down screaming, saying there was a big dog trying to get in the house, a big dog, and it had blood all over it, and he was petrified. Of course, his father at the time went out and looked around, and we didn't see anything. However, that night was just extremely, extremely weird after that. You know, he couldn't calm Jared down at all. He didn't go to sleep until like daylight. So he was really scared for a little boy. I'm like, oh my goodness. I was trying to tell him, I said, there is no monsters that look like that. I believed in Bigfoot. My mother and sister are kind of on the witchy side, so ghosts have always been an issue with us. We believe in a lot of things. I did not believe in werewolves because seeing them on TV, I didn't think a human's going to change into an animal. When he was 5, he just didn't have a clue what kind of thing was trying to come into the house.
Well, I'm sure he did know what to think when he was laying there on the couch, woke up and saw that big dog man trying to break in. For the people who didn't hear last week's show, Clara, please tell us what he went through that night.
Okay. We let him sleep out on the couch because he's 5 years old. I always kept the doors closed. I never really locked them because my whole family was all next door. Wasn't too worried. I knew he wouldn't get up and go out in the dark or anything. Oh, he was so scared. So scared. And the next morning we got up, we walked around, we didn't see any signs of blood. The thing that he said was coming in the door had blood on its face, muzzle, and one, I guess, paw or hand. But he was so scared. He was screaming when he come running down. And I mean, literally, we bounced out of bed and went and checked, and we didn't find any blood. But he has been tormented by that since he was 5. And it's really sad because I'm like telling him, Jared, I don't know what you're seeing because there's nothing out there like that. And I felt horrible telling a 5-year-old there's no such things as monsters because all kids think there's monsters somewhere. But I believe his encounter was true. I have never seen him in such hysteria ever.
Well, you know what they say, you can't lie to your mom. If you say that you're convinced that what he said is what he actually saw, then I believe you.
Yeah, oh, I do now. Since my encounters, I definitely believe him. Back then, I thought it was just a bad dream or something he'd seen on television or, you know. But we had a huge window, so I wasn't sure if maybe something was looking at him. But we definitely took it serious. And from then on, I kept the doors locked. I have a feeling if it wanted to get in bad enough, it wouldn't have a problem.
Oh, I'm sure it could have. You just mentioned that big window. Was it a bigger void in that window than what the doorway would have been, so that if the dog man wanted to break through the glass, it could have come right in?
Absolutely. The front window wrapped around the whole front of the mobile home that we were in. We were just starting out, so we didn't have a great place. It was one of those silver streamlined trailers or mobile homes. But the whole front was all glass. I remember I was looking out the window at the snow, and Jared's father threw a snowball and it hit the window, and I thought it was going to crack. So, yeah, the sides had huge windows, very easy, just no more than like a car windshield. You know, you had the rubber gasket around the window. It wouldn't have taken much to pop them out at all.
Not at all. What's even more disconcerting is if that dog man wanted to, it could have come right through the wall and gotten to you. But for whatever reason, it didn't do that, of course.
From what I see now, I absolutely believe that. back then I just thought he was having a bad dream. But it has bothered him so much over the years. He still talks about it, and he's 38. It's a long time to carry that.
That is a long time to carry an experience like that. I really feel for him. I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be 5 and go through an experience like that. That's horrible.
It was, and it has been, because you could hear things at night walking by and scratching on the glass or tapping on the windows or scratching on the screens when I left the screens on, which I really didn't like to do. It made easier access. And God, I'm telling you, until he was probably 20 years old, every time he seen something, he came running to me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you want me to do because I'm not going out there looking for it. There's so much woodland up here. We're in the Adirondack mountain range, and there's not a whole lot from here all the way up through Canada. All you got to do is cross a couple of rivers, and then you go for miles and miles and more miles through the woods, so it's all timber. Big logging area. That my family was involved in the logging business. So been in the woods a lot, seen a lot. Not really sure to explain a lot of it or have any reason to keep bringing it up because Jared was having so much problems with the things that he'd seen.
Well, I think anyone in his position would have had a lot of trouble dealing with them. Did you ever see damage that had been done to your trailer that might have indicated that the dogman came back and tried to gain entry again at some other point?
No, I can't say as that we did. We did come home one day, and my daughter, Laura, she was just a baby. I had this bassinet. She was still in a bassinet, and the door was open, and in the bedroom, the back bedroom had a big mirror, and the mirror was broke, and half of the mirror just went right straight into the bassinet, and it split the whole bottom of the bassinet. And to this day, I have no idea. Something, when I was a child, it was my great-grandmother's place. She used to stay there in this trailer. And I got off the school bus, and I was going in to get some ice cream out of the freezer, and the little screen door that separated the bedroom from the bathroom and the kitchen area, I opened it up, and I don't remember for what, but something grabbed my hand. I'm telling you, I was out of there. I don't know what that was either. The only thing, Vic, is that I had a couple instances, probably 3, that I can't explain. I'll share them with you. One, I was walking over to my grandmother's. I lived on the farthest end. My mother lived in the middle, and my grandmother lived next door to my mother. And I had my outside light on. My mom used to turn her outside light on, and my grandmother did too. I would use my grandma's car to go to work, and I always worked 11 to 7. And I was walking to my grandmother's. My mother didn't have the light on. My grandmother didn't have the light on. I'm like, great. And it was pitch black out. I got about 3/4 of the way there, and right behind me, something snorted. I can't do it. It was like a real hard snort, like a type thing. My hair went up, and all I know is the screen door that Jared talked about that was screechy. I went right through it. I didn't stop to knock. And I told Grandma, I said, there's something out there, Grandma. And she's like, oh, it's probably just a buck. I'm like, yeah, okay, there's no deer. But there was that. And going back in time a little bit, I'm sorry I got them screwed up, but I went out to get my husband's coffee cup and his thermos out of the truck. I used to split firewood. He'd bring it home, and I'd split it during the day. So he would tip them all upright so I didn't have to lift them and stuff. And they'd be scattered all over the driveway. Usually you'd break your neck trying to get up to the door. I went out to get, like I said, his coffee cup and thermos. And I looked in and seen diapers. And I said, well, I might need those. So I pulled them out. And as soon as I reached back in, something slammed into the driver's side of the pickup that we had. And I don't know if you know what a pinch point is, but that's where the door and the fender comes together. That's where you use the jaws of life to try to gain entry. That's where they pry. I ran. I didn't hit nothing. I just went running into the house. I left the truck door open, and I just got into the house, never tripped over anything, and I landed on his father, who went out and looked. There was nothing there, but on his side of the truck, right at the pinch point, there was a dent, probably the size of a football. No hair, no blood, no nothing. I have no idea what that was, but I knew it was big enough to hit that truck, and it shook it so bad. Never caught a glimpse of anything. I just went back in the house and had my husband go check, which he didn't want to do either.
Well, I can't say I'll blame him. When he went out there to check, do you know if he found any evidence like a footprint or hair or anything like that?
No, he's parked on the edge of the road because, like I said, we used the driveway for wood. So he is parked alongside. It was a dead-end road, so you didn't have to worry about other vehicles, really. So the truck was on the pavement. The passenger side was in the dirt a little bit, but we never found nothing. And he said, well, you had to have seen something. And I said, I didn't see what it was, but it scared me to death. To this day, I have no clue what that could have been. And things just vanish up there. It's like you'd be walking down the road at night, and you could hear foot tracks in the woods following you in the leaves. When you stopped, it would stop. And, you know, it was, we finally got used to it. At least I did. One day I did go for a walk by myself, but I was staying on the dead-end road. It's a half a mile long. I was probably halfway around the road. My neighbor had a bunch of brush piled up, and this big black dog jumped over. Usually I had a trail of animals following me down the road, and this time I had nothing. And this big black dog jumped in front of me, and it dropped its head immediately, and I'm like, oh, God, that's not a dog. That's a wolf. And my neighbor come running with a pitchfork, and it just scooted across the road. So I've seen what a real wolf looks like. That startled me more than it scared me. But as far as the dog man goes, it was big. It might have weighed 150 pounds, and it was grungy. It was really grungy looking. I didn't see any other ones, just that one. And he's going to go down to the river, I believe, and get a drink. That was my theory.
Having all the experience that you've had in the woods, I'm sure you realize that that behavior is very unusual for a wolf.
Absolutely. I have no idea what its intentions were. I just stood still, and I'm like, crap, I didn't know which way to go, you know, and I'm like, I'm not turning my back. And, yeah, a lot of predators up there. It's hard to get people to believe, but there are mountain lions around here. I seen one of them at the end of our road, crossed right in front of me one night as I was going to work. Bobcats, your usual raccoons, possums, and bears. We had bears. The only thing that I know is when Jared was a baby, this was really strange to me. It was really hazy out. Sometimes it gets like orangey colored with the haze, and the wind started to blow, and I was there alone with Jared, and I could hear this noise, and it was like a dragging noise. I was too scared. I was praying, please just let his father and my grandmother get home. They went down to the store, and when I seen them pull up, I opened up the door and I looked, and we had buried a dog that had passed. It was a beautiful dog, but whatever it was had dug him up and pulled him all the way to my front steps. And I didn't see because I didn't get up and look. I was young. I had Jared when I was 16, so, you know, I was still young too. And I have no explanation for that whatsoever. I've seen bears. Usually they'll run. The bears will run. It was just really strange. I have no idea. I didn't see any tracks. It had to have dragged him probably 100 feet. It was just real gruesome and nasty, and I don't know if it had been feeding on it. I didn't really look well because I just didn't want to look. I was still young.
Well, I'm glad you didn't look. Unfortunately, that does sound like dogman activity. It sure sounds to me like you were under siege.
I think there was something there. I have no idea what it was.
Talking about the time when you were grabbed, do you remember if whatever it was that grabbed you had hair on its hand and or claws?
It had a really strong grip, and it did have hair. I could feel the hair. I don't know about claws. It had to have some sort of digits or fingers to hold on to me the way it did. I can't imagine a paw. Even a bear, which I know wasn't a bear, wasn't back there, but even a bear, they aren't going to hold you like that. They're going to swat you around and bite you. They don't grip you like a hand vise. This thing had a hold of me, and it was pulling, and it did have hair, and it felt really strong. I didn't see it, though. I didn't get that close. It reached out and grabbed me just as soon as I went to open that screen up.
Ew, that's awfully creepy.
It is. It is.
Why did it let go? Did you scream or pull away from it?
Oh, yeah. I screamed. I pulled away from it, and I didn't stop running until I got all the way up to the end of the road at my neighbor's house to call. I don't remember who I was calling, my grandmother or somebody. I was telling them what happened. The neighbor let me stay up there until my grandmother got home, but when we got home, the screen was completely open. The front door was open, and I have no doubt whatever tried to grab me didn't have good intentions. It just, made my hair stand on end. Still, I get goosebumps.
Oh, I bet you do. Yeah, that couldn't have been easy to live through. Let's bounce back and talk more about that incident that happened to Jared. At that time, how close was your trailer to the woods?
Well, like I said, our road, it was a dead-end road, and there's woods all around us. Even just going down over the bank to the river, if you didn't have a path, you'd have a hard time maneuvering down through there. It's an all-wooded area. We had trees maybe 5 feet on the side and 10 feet in the back. We were surrounded pretty much by timber. So, it never surprised me. We had a path that we walked to go up to Grandma's house and to my mom's house. But other than that, nobody really cut any timber down because we liked being in the woods and stuff. We enjoyed the area. It was beautiful. It still is beautiful. So the woods were really close.
Yeah, sounds like you were right in the thick of it.
Oh, absolutely. We are again, too.
I'll bet you are. Before that incident happened, did anything happen around your property that might have indicated a large unknown animal was hanging around?
Not that I can remember. I knew there was bears. I've seen several of those, but I've never heard one growl. They'll sniff. But whatever was out there, we have no indication that there was ever anything, no marks. Everybody had dogs, so it'd be kind of hard to tell you if there was a dog track or not, or a wolf track or whatever, a dog man track. I assume it would be much larger than a regular dog, given the size of the ones that I've seen.
Yeah, they normally are. Before you tell us about your first eyes-on encounter, please tell us about the place where it happened.
Okay. The area up here is extremely wooded. Once it starts to get dark, around 5 o'clock, or even right now, if you went out and tried to look into the woods, it would be black. You really couldn't see anything. We had the Hudson River meandering on down through, and there was some fields, and there's one road that comes into Stony Creek, just a regular 2-lane road, and there's a couple cemeteries around there, and there's all kinds of wildlife up here, all kinds. Deer, like I said, right down to cougars, bobcats. There's wolves, there's coyotes, coy dogs. There's only 300 residents in this town in the wintertime and 700 during the summertime. So you got a little bit of everything, but it's sparsely populated.
It sure sounds like it is. All right, Clara, please tell us about that encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. It was August 1st of 2016. I had gone down to the store, had to pick up something for dinner. My husband was with me. It was about 9 o'clock at night. It wasn't dark. It had been a really hot day. I'm driving down the road towards home, and I would want to say about maybe 3 or 4 miles from my house. And there was a straightaway, and I seen something coming out of the woods on the passenger side. It would be on the right side of the car. And I slowed down, and I'm like, what is that? I thought, oh, goody, we're going to see a bear or something. There was no bear. This thing was walking on 2 legs. It had a huge, bushy black tail, and it was crouched over a little bit, but its front hands or feet, claws, never touched the ground. I said to my husband, I go, what is that? And as I said that, I was slowing down because it just meandered across the road, just nice and slow. Didn't even look my way, just kept walking. And it went down over a little embankment, nothing big, and there was a log there, and I remember I stopped the car in the middle of the road, and I rolled down my window, and this thing, oh goodness, it was black, and it had a white-colored face, huge, huge ears. The upper part, it just looked so muscular, and in my mind, I'm like trying to figure out what I'm looking at because I couldn't figure it out. And I kept staring at it. Its eyes were like looking into the embers of a fire. They were like orangey red, and that's what drew me. I think I stared at it for probably a good minute. And like I said, the fur was black, and it looked nice and clean. I didn't notice teeth, but it did just wrinkled its nose at me, like, what the are you doing here? And instead, I had one hand or claws or whatever it was on the log, and it stood there and looked at me. It had to have been at least, I would guess, around 7 foot tall. If I had to put measurement on it, between 7 and a half foot. And it didn't show fear. I didn't show fear. My husband did. He screamed, "Get out of here, get out of here." And I'm like, wait. I said, I want to know what this is. And I'm looking, and it didn't run. It did have an odor. I could smell like sewer and wet dog smell, but really rank smelling. And it was standing on 2 feet when its claw was on the log, and it was just staring at me. And I'm like, somehow I stopped my gaze, almost like it was trying to hypnotize me. That's the way I felt. I felt like it was trying to take control over my mind. And all the while, I'm smelling the smell. My husband's having a fit beside me, which I thought would make it run. And the ears on it were huge. I mean, huge pointy ears. Like I said, I didn't see teeth, but the face of it looked kind of white around the eyes, and the snout, it had a snout. It came out of the woods and was going back into the woods on the other side. The water was all on the side he was coming from, so I don't know if it was down there getting a drink, fishing, going to the bathroom. I don't know. But I said, oh my goodness. I said, Jared has been saying there's werewolves all over the place, and for years I've been telling him, honey, there's no werewolves. And I told my husband, I said, this is going to be good. I said, 'cause I got to go home and tell Jared what we just seen. I said, because I think that's a dog man. It's just so muscular looking and really broad at the top. The head was large, probably steering wheel shape, a regular steering wheel. You'd probably might be able to get it over its head. And like I said, I sat there for a good minute and a half just staring at it, trying to figure out what it was, because I had never seen that. I had no clue. I'm like, it's not a Bigfoot. And it was kind of more narrow at the waist. Then the thighs were heavier, and the calves, the hocks on it. It was just rippling with muscle, and it was black, like I said. Kind of long hair, shaggy, but it wasn't unkept. It was very well clean. It didn't look dirty to me, but whatever that smell was, oh my goodness, it was horrible. And that's all I could think of, a mixture of sewage and wet dog smell, but really rank. Didn't see any teeth. We were more engaged eye to eye than anything else. Like he was gauging me and I was gazing at him or it. And like I said, I was just, I know all the animals up here. I've lived here my entire life, except for when we moved to Columbia County for about 15 years. But other than that, I have, seen everything. I've been out on the road with fire companies doing flares at night all by myself. But I have never, ever had anything cross the road on 2 feet that looked like a dog, a giant dog. It didn't have no problem walking on hind feet. It was crouched over a little bit, almost like the one on Dogman Encounters, that one you show at the very beginning. Little humped over like that. And just to smell the eyes, I could still see the eyes. And I was like, oh goodness, we aren't dealing with I don't know what we're dealing with up here. And I'm like, maybe this was a bad idea, but I just want people to be aware. The summer people don't realize what's around here at all. It walked slow. It didn't run. It didn't hurry. It didn't hustle. And when it stopped, it went down over, just like I said, like over a little embankment, and it just turned, put one claw paw or whatever thing it had on a log, and just turned its head and just looked at me with like a frown on its face, like, it just, the eyes just were so orangey red that I'm thinking, oh, I know that's not Mothman, but I just had to come home and tell Jared. I said, I think I just seen what you've seen in the woods so many times, and I was shaken, but I didn't have fear. My husband was scared to death. I was more curious than anything because I'd never seen an animal like that before. We hear things at night around our home. I have 4 dogs, so it's kind of hard, but we've had 2 wolves. One was black and one was white that went down the driveway. And they were big, but there was nothing compared to what I seen. I've never really totally ever seen one that close or in that much detail. And yes, it did have big claws on its hand, like, hard to explain the hand, but I did see a lot of claws. Did not see teeth, but I'm the one that left because my husband was really upset, to say the least, and it wasn't afraid of me. And I was in my Camaro, so I was almost eye to eye with this thing. There was no more than, 20, 25 feet away from it. It didn't move. It didn't twitch. It didn't do nothing. It just stood silently still and just kept staring at us. And when I went to roll down my window, I thought my husband was going to faint. And I'm like, no, I want to see what this is. And I got to look. And the only thing I can compare it to is a dog man. There is no other explanation. I've never ever seen anything like actually visualize the entire body and the eyes and stuff like that. And the stench was horrible. Horrible. And that was in Stony Creek, New York, about, I'd say 4 miles from my house.
You know what they say about curiosity and cats? I can't believe you rolled down your window.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm a country girl. I'm not afraid of the animals around here because I know there's prey animals, but curiosity exactly kills the cat, I know. But it didn't twitch or come back or growl or, he just wrinkled up the muzzle and kind of frowned like at me. But like I said, his eyes were drawing me right in. And it was like almost, I couldn't move. I didn't even want to put my foot back on the gas pedal because I don't know if it had something to do with staring at its eyes or what. But the only reason I moved was my husband started getting really nervous and saying to get out of there. And I'm like, I want to see what it is. What is it? What is that? And the closest thing I can say is that it's a dog man. Has to be. And there's all kinds of game animals up here. You got deer, bear, all kinds of cats, bobcats, coyotes, and coy dogs. It can prey on anything. The size of that thing wouldn't have had any problem at all. And you see dead deer on the side of the road all the time. You might go down to the store and come back, it's gone. It's like, okay, I don't know who got out and moved it, but it happens all the time.
Oh, I'm sure a dog man wouldn't go hungry in a place like that. When you were sitting there looking at that dog man, did you get an evil vibe off of it, or did you get the feeling that it was just a large, scary-looking animal doing its thing?
I think I was more scared after the fact than when I was actually looking at it. After I got home, I was like, oh my God, I started shaking, and I come over and told Jared, I said, 4 miles down the road, I said, I just seen this thing cross the road. And it's such a bad vibe. Not like I want to run into it again on foot or something. It was interesting. I don't know. I think with age comes wisdom, But no, I don't know. The eyes. All I can think of is the eyes was trying to mesmerize me or something. It was that intense. Where I didn't feel the fear. I was curious. I wanted to know what it was. And I'm running every animal that I know that's up here through my mind, and nothing. My grandfather owns a riding stable. He went horseback riding all the time. I've never seen anything like that. Never. And we always take off on horseback all through the woods and stuff, so it had to have been a dog man. There is no other explanation. When I seen the pictures, it's like identical.
Because of that experience you and your husband had, he's taken action to try and protect himself. What did he do?
Oh, well, he went out and got a double-barrel shotgun that he sleeps with. He was a city kitty, is what I call him, and you're a redneck up here, country girl, and it's always within his reach. And like I told him, if it's trying to come in, don't shoot it until you feel like you're going to die, if you don't. And he said he knew that, because we have big windows that are just one pane of glass, and we hear stuff out there all the time. I turn the TV down or the whatever I'm listening to, and you can hear little scratches and little pings and twigs snapping, and something slammed into my back door. We have no idea what that was. Again, no hair, no blood, just a dent. He was terrified. So he went and got the double-barrel shotgun, and like I said, he sleeps with it pretty much.
Well, I can understand why he does. Considering all the strange things that continue to go on to this day, have you ever thought about moving?
Moving? No, absolutely not. I love it here. And we've had spent so much time in the woods around here, growing up, that I think, and this is just my thought, I have no idea. I think they know who we are and that we're here. And they may toy around or, howl and scare the crap out of you or whatever. But I didn't feel threatened at all. I had no idea what I was looking at. Afterwards, I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just seen. I'm college educated and I could not figure out what I had seen. The eyes made no sense to me, why they'd be red and orange. It just was scary.
To say the least. You and your daughter stopped at that same spot another time and wound up having another strange experience. What happened that time?
Well, she was driving my car, and I have a Camaro, as Jared had said on the other show, and it's yellow. I wasn't liking how she was driving, so I told her to pull over because I was going to drive. So we pulled over to the edge of the road. I want to say it might have been around 7 o'clock at night. Again, the leaves were still on the trees, but I want to say maybe around September or so of 2016. And when I got out of the car, immediately, I could smell that stench again. I'm thinking, somebody's there was no houses there. Why there would be no sewer? And you could smell sewage, decaying flesh, wet dog. And I told Laura, I got out of the car first, and I'm like, hurry up and get in the car. And you could see, like maybe 3 or 4 trees in, you could see something black was standing there, and it was moving back and forth. And Laura's like, what is that, Mom? And I'm like, well, I said, I don't believe it's a bear, because if it's a bear, it wouldn't stand there. It would take off. As soon as you heard the car pull over, a bear will run. This did not run. We didn't hear anything. The smell, like I said, was horrible. I tried looking, and she was so scared. I'm like, if this is the same thing I've seen before, I really don't need to see it again. But whatever it was, you could see it through the branches. You could see the body of it moving. It was no bear. It was black. Big. It was tall.
Sure makes you wonder if that might not have been the same dog man you saw the other time.
Absolutely. It was only a couple months after that.
Yeah, that's not that long after then.
No.
When you were sitting there watching that dog man walk across the road, did you ever have a chance to notice its leg structure?
Yeah, it walked only on the pads of his feet. Its hocks and stuff. It looked like, literally like a regular dog, like backward legs, like the knees bent. It's just weird. It only walked on its hind feet, like tippy toes almost. I was that close to it. Its feet had nails on them, too, that were kind of weird looking, long. But it was around a cemetery, like I said, in the railroad tracks. And whatever it was that we seen when I stopped the car to switch drivers, that smell was identical. And every now and then, more now than then, if you go down this road, you have your windows down, there's spots that you'll smell this all the time, pretty much. I think it likes that one area really well. Deer jump out in front of you all the time. And I haven't had a dog man jump out in front of me, but it walked out in front of me. It just meandered. It was just like, could have cared less. Didn't have a care in the world that I was there. At least that's the way it appeared. It did not howl. It didn't make any noise. I don't think the neighbors hear it. I have one neighbor that he laughs at me. And there's one person that I buy my home from, and he said, don't laugh. He goes, there's things in these woods that you would never even know exist. And he's been here his entire life. He's a hunter and a trapper. And he says he's seen a lot of things that he couldn't explain in the woods. He just knew he had to get out of there. So, kind of sealed my belief that I had a dogman encounter. Face to face, pretty much. There was nothing between us, nothing.
Oh, it sure sounds like it. A couple of weeks ago, you heard an interesting call on your police scanner. What did you hear?
Oh, the police scanner. We have a scanner at home. It tones out for fire and emergencies and police calls. We listen to it because I was a member of the fire departments for about 19 years and my husband for about 10 years. So we always had the scanner on. A call came in for a woman. She needed an officer to come by and investigate. The road was 418, which I could throw a stone from my house and hit 418. And that goes up through Thurman into Warrensburg. I don't remember the number. I wish I caught the house number, but I didn't. Said that she had just witnessed a dog-like creature walking on its hind legs, come out of the woods, and it was huge, walk across the road, crossed her lawn, into her backyard, and disappeared into the woods. And would they please send a patrol car to investigate? My husband and I heard it, and my neighbor heard it too, that has a radio, a scanner. Other than that, I haven't heard anything, but every time I'm on that road, I got my eyes peeled because I think I've seen one there too on 418. The food up here, there's so much wildlife, and even Columbia County, I mean, it's all corn down there, and deer are horrible, but there's all kinds of stuff up here. By far, I love it up here because we're in the woods and we're with nature, and I don't know. I just want people to know they're there, to be careful. Like Jared said, don't go in the woods alone. You really shouldn't do that. Anyway, wherever you're going, you should always let somebody know where you're going. If you're going alone, give them a plan. So if you don't show back up, they have at least some knowledge of where you went. Do I want to go walking in the woods? Wouldn't scare me to go in the woods, but I would preferably, I have a bad hip, and I got a good excuse, so if my car broke down or something on the road, would I want to walk? Nah, not really, but these things have had chances so many times to harm my family. They never have. Our animals have come up missing. I have dogs taken right off the chain, and their collar would be there where it was ripped, and it's like not a trace of anything. And, cats, dogs, just, I don't know, Beck, I'm not sure what their intent is. I didn't feel fear from it. I was more amazed that I'd actually seen something different. But on the other hand, I think protect yourself and go with somebody is the important thing.
That's always a good idea.
We have a lot of people come up missing in this area. They get lost in the woods, and there's always a search going on for somebody up here, almost weekly.
Wow, that sure does sound like a strange place. It sure does make you wonder. Some of those people, like you said, they might have just gotten lost, but for the other people who turned up missing, you never know, and you're always going to wonder.
Yeah, the ones that never come back are the ones they don't find. We've had a lot of suicides and stuff up here. They'll walk into the woods and do their thing. But as far as that, God knows where they could be. I don't know where they nest or sleep or have pups, and if they have puppies or baby dogmen.
Yeah, they just might have a hand in this. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
What's the story behind the nightmarish howl you heard?
Oh, God. That was down in Columbia County. I don't like crowds of people. My daughter and I would go grocery shopping about 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, Walmart's open 24/7. So we went to Walmart. It was cold. It was cold out. I don't know if there was snow. I don't remember if there was snow. I don't think so. But it was really cold, probably in November-ish. And that was about 2015, I would say. We came back home. Nothing going on. I popped the trunk to the car because we were going to take groceries in the house. And from out of nowhere, this howl, it hurt my ears. It was so loud and so close. And I looked over at my daughter because the spotlight had came on, and all I could see is that she was so scared she couldn't even move. The howl lasted probably a good 15, 20 seconds. It was nothing, there was no other noise behind it. No other noise came after it. I said, we're leaving the groceries in the car. Get in the house. She's 34 years old, but I'm like telling her to get in the house. What was it, Mom? Oh, Mom. I'm like, I don't have a clue what it was, Laura. Wolfy type thing. I don't know. But whatever made that sound, it couldn't have come from something small. It just couldn't. I mean, it literally, you could feel it. It was so strong. And I'm like, ugh. So that was literally right from the gut. It howled.
If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what would.
I just wanted to get in the house. And I wasn't happy in there either because I'm like, we should have went to the firehouse. At least it's all bricks. But yeah, it's just crazy how I have ever heard in my life.
Did it sound more wolf-like in nature, or how would you describe it?
Absolutely. It was a long, drawn-out, deep howl, and it lasted at least 20 seconds. It wasn't something that just went, oh, it was, I have a dog that howls when he wants to come in or go out. Nothing like that. It was a very clear night. You could see the stars, but it was, like I said, ice cold. And I know when I pulled in the yard, we stepped out of the car, and that thing let out that howl. And it was right from its guts. You can tell. It was like, I knew it was close. And we had been seeing things that we couldn't explain down there. Like Jared had said, he had seen that black dog man. And I have a pretty good idea that whatever Jared's seen is what we heard howl. It had to come from something that was massive.
It really makes you wonder why they do that. You've got an interesting name for people who live in a nearby town. What's the story behind that?
Well, my grandmother, she passed away in 2000. She raised me, and my great-grandma raised me. She called me Sliv. That was my nickname, Sliv. She goes, you don't know what's out there at night. And I said, but Grandma, no buts to it. It was like when it started getting dark, you had to go in the house. And she says, you'll see things out there you don't want to see. And we were driving to Warrensburg one day, and we came up through Stony Creek to cross over a little shorter distance, and the sign for Thurman showed up. And I said, where's Thurman, Grandma? And she goes, we're in Thurman. She goes, but Thurman has always been called the home of the wolf people. And I'm like, what do you mean, the wolf people? And she goes, just what I told you, the wolf people. And she would never elaborate any further than that. And I bet you I asked her 20 times a year what she meant by wolf people in Thurman. And Jared and I went for a ride up through there. And I can see, not that they act weird, but you go up there and everybody seems to be coming out of their house and stuff watching you. It's a vehicle they don't recognize. And that is border Stony Creek. So I'm trying to think, maybe 6 miles from here, maybe, if that far. And that is where 418 is located. Where the call came in, we heard on the scanner, was Route 418, and that is Route 418 up through there.
It sure sounds like a creepy place to me.
Well, it creeped me out that my grandmother said that. But once people get to know you up here, you're okay. But every time I see that sign, Thurman, that thought always goes through my mind. And that's where I seen the other thing that I think was a dog man. We went to pick my daughter-in-law up from work. She lives in Warrensburg, New York, which borders Thurman. We were coming back. I was in my daughter's Explorer, so I was sitting kind of high up. I wasn't driving. She was, so I just watched the road. I was watching the edge. It snowed so bad. We had almost like 3 foot of snow up here at the end of the season, and they hadn't pushed the banks back yet. She was going slow because the roads were horrible. And I just happened to be watching the side of the road because you could see right up through the hills and stuff where you can't do it with leaves. The snowbanks had to be at least 4.5 foot high. I used to build forts in snow, and I'd been stuck in the snowbank trying to get over one and stuff. And I happened to notice this little meandering trail, and I'm like, there's something walking. I could see it walking. And it was pitch black. Wasn't a bear. It was on 2 feet. We didn't stop to look at the tracks, but I'm trying to figure out how this thing got over the snowbank and not leave a mess. But you could see right where it took its first step. And I can't say it was dog-like because I really couldn't see dimensions, but it was more roundish, but not like a bear. More like a wolf, a big wolf. And it was standing at the top of the hill. And it just, when we went by, it turned and looked at me. And I'm like, look, I think that's a dog man, look. And I had told my daughter to turn around so we could go back and see what it was. And she didn't want any part of that. My daughter-in-law still hasn't seen one. She says she wants to see one. I said, no, you don't. But I fully believe that was either the same one or he could have been a different one. They're shaped so like a person. You know, broader at the shoulders and narrow at the hip type thing, but it had real heavy thighs. And I'm like, that is not a bear. And besides, bears were still hibernating. Yeah, they do come out once in a while and get something to eat or do their business or whatever they got to do. But this was a heart of winter, and it was so cold and just a mess outside. And again, Stony Creek has its creek. It goes all the way down where it meets the Hudson River. And then we have the Scroon River that comes down and meets the Hudson River. So everything from up north comes down through, you know, the north part of Warren County. I don't know what the other county is up above us, but for miles and miles, all it is wooded land. And I truly believe that was what we seen. I seen. They didn't see it. And my daughter wouldn't turn around and go back and look, but probably been gone by then anyway, because I would have gotten out. I wanted to look at the tracks. And Laura's like, if you think I'm turning around, you're out of your mind. I'm like, okay, just saying. It had tail. It had ears. I could see the pointed ears. I could see a tail. It was pure black. And I seen it turn, but I didn't catch its eyes or its face too well. But the ears were huge and pointed, and it had the big, long, about 3 foot, bushy long tail. And somehow it had went over that 4.5 foot snowbank that has guardrails. You can't even see the guardrails when the snow was that high. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, what is that? Who could be walking up there? Somebody would be stuck in the snowbank. I was just looking at the tracks. I just followed with my eyes the tracks, and there it was. It was right at the top of the hill, just turned and looked back down at us. And like I said, the roads were icy. We weren't going maybe 15 miles an hour. That's how bad it was. So I had a chance to really get a good glimpse of it for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds that I seen it, because we were going uphill and it was really slippery. So it gave me a little extra time to run animals through my eye. It looked identical to the same thing that I had witnessed in August of 2016, the one that crossed the road in front of me. And I fully believe that, I don't know if they're out there to hurt people. I really don't. I don't know what their intentions are, but they got the equipment to do whatever they want to do, I'm sure. I've seen claws, I've seen toenails, and I have not seen teeth, but I'm sure they got a mouthful.
That they do.
Yeah.
You mentioned the fact that you saw the tracks before you saw that dog man or whatever that was. It sounds to me like it was a dog man, but I wasn't there to see it, and you said it was a distance away. But did the tracks cross the road, or were they parallel to the road?
They had crossed the road, but you couldn't see where it had stepped over the snowbank. There was still snow and slush on the road. It's not a hugely traveled road. During the summer, yes. During the winter, absolutely not. People try to take other routes because the road is so bad. And I just looked at the track and then the snowbank, and I looked up and I could see these tracks. It wasn't like on 4 feet. There was 2 tracks, and I just glanced up the hill, and there was this big black thing with a huge bushy tail, giant pointed ears. It had a snout, and I'm like, oh, God, not again. And it just turned and just stood there and stared. I didn't see the eyes. It was looking at us, but it was too far away for me to see the eyes, you know, the facial features. But I could tell that the ears, when I say far away, I don't know, 300 feet maybe, if that, away from me. So to see facial features would have been hard because it was all black. I didn't see any white on this thing's face, but it was massive. It was, I was like, oh, geez, I just saying, just draw, I told Laura, that's my daughter is Laura, let's turn around and go see what that was. And no. The roads were too bad, and I want to know what's out there. And she goes, I don't think you really want to know what's out there. But I do. I'm curious. And it's interesting to me because these things have been around for years, obviously, because at least every other night after that one encounter with Jared when he was 5 years old, that kid, he would come screaming down, saying he had seen something looking in the window, and he always thought it was a werewolf. The kid was always in the woods. He was always out fishing, always. I had the hardest time keeping track of him. As soon as it got dark, he was back home. And there were several incidences with him where he said he had seen this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, but Jared, that don't exist. I said, maybe you've seen a wolf or something. Absolutely not. And now I do believe him. I do. I firmly believe there's things out there. And I firmly believe that my daughter-in-law eventually, if she looks hard enough, will find something that she don't want to see.
That's one thing I just don't understand. It sounds like she's afraid of dogmen. If that's the case, why would she be so dead set on seeing one?
I think it's curiosity. Jared drags her with him fishing, and she hates to go because once it gets dark, she's afraid and doesn't want to be in the woods and stuff. But I don't blame her. You know, I told her I don't think taking a gun with you is the greatest thing. I personally would prefer pepper spray. It might really irritate it, but I've heard the stories on ex-police officers or retired police officers have shot one, went back the next day, and knows he hit it in the chest directly, but yet it was gone. He could find where it thrashed around and there was blood and stuff, but no dogman. So, I don't know. I've been investing in a gun myself, but I have grandchildren, so I want to be very careful. People need to be aware. Ignorance is blissful, but I'm telling you, these people that come here to camp and play in the woods around here, they don't know what they're playing with. They don't know what's out there. Or if they did, you know, it'd probably be nothing. We've seen a bear or one lady, because we also have Harrisburg Lake. I don't know, it's probably 13, 14 miles from my house. I'm about 0.2 of a mile from the main Four Corners, is all it is in Stony Creek is Four Corners. If you turn right and go up, you go up to Harrisburg Lake, and that's up there 12, 13 miles. And they have what is called the Bear Lodge Camp, Harrisburg Bear Lodge Camp, I think it's called. It's absolutely gorgeous. But we were going to go camping. I'm like, why do you want to go camping? We live in the woods. I don't need to go camping. I've done enough of that. But up there, you climb right up the side of the mountain is what it is. It's a mountain. And there's a big lake up at the top, and it's beautiful. But you try to go up that road. I took my daughter, Laura, and my daughter-in-law, Tanya. We went for a ride here not very long ago, actually. Maybe 3 weeks ago or so. And we went up that way because, like I said, the man that we're buying our home from said, if you go up here and you go around the loop, he goes, I guarantee you every time you will see an animal. So I've been doing that. We did it a few weeks ago, and lo and behold, this beautiful buck walks right out in front of us. Not that I wanted to see a deer. I've seen thousands of deer living down in Columbia County, but it was beautiful. I've done it a couple times. We've seen a couple dogs running loose. Nothing like a dog man, but without a doubt, I'm sure they're there. That's just my thought. What a place to hide. It's absolutely gorgeous up there. You got the lake, you got food, you got deer, they got fresh water. There's woods, they can hide. I believe, if I've heard right, there's several caves up in that area, but they're kind of hard to get to. And, I'm in no shape to climb up the mountain to look for a cave. Never been much for hiking, but I can't help it. I'm so curious, and it does. It's like adrenaline. It's like being in the fire company. The pager goes off, and you got to go help somebody, and you get pumped, and you got to remember to take it slow and get there on time so you don't have an accident getting there. But that's the way I felt. I just want to know. I don't know why I want to know. I know there's something there that's different than I have ever seen. I didn't even know there was moose up here, but there is. I have not had that lucky advantage because I'm a bear person. I love bears. I want to go to Kodiak Island so bad. $20,000 for each guide, and I kind of want a couple of them. I just want to shoot pictures. So I know a lot about bears and their activity and stuff, and I've seen hundreds of them growing up, not just in Stony Creek, but in Hadley. Like I said, Hadley borders Stony Creek. Hadley actually Saratoga County, and we're just up towards the beginning of the south end of Warren County, a little ways above that. We're about 2 miles into Warren County. So, I don't want to be where I can reach out and pet one or something like that, but I would love to be able to get something on camera, definitely.
A lot of people have tried. Not many have had much luck. There are definitely very few and far between. Claire, it's about time for us to get out of here. Before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Well, I just want the public to be aware that there are things out there that they probably don't know, or if they do know, they aren't saying. Maybe they feel like they're crazy. I couldn't register it for a while. I had to have time to process it. I just want people to be safe. Go in pairs. Always have a buddy with you. Leave notes or tell somebody where you're going, what your destination is, and what time you expect to be back. And keep your eyes on your children. They ride up and down the road. They walk up and down the road. And being a volunteer firefighter for about 19 years, it's all about the public to me, your community. I want my community to realize there's things out there that they may not know exist. And that's pretty much all I can say.
Well, that sounds like good advice to me. Well, thanks again so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and sharing all these experiences with us.
Well, thank you too, Vic. I'm glad you're doing Dogman Encounters Radio. You're doing a great job. You're educating the public, and that's the best thing you can do. But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again so much for your time. Have a great night.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.